Hey, it's your financial maven, Samantha Mittman Besnoff, CPA. And for the last 30 years, yes, 30 years in the accounting world, I absolutely love sharing my insights and passion about money for individuals, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. Knowing your money and hopefully feeling less stressed about your money is what I call being financially empowered. Welcome to the Your Financial Maven podcast. Welcome to the latest episode of Your Financial Maven. I am so excited today. I have with me a businesswoman, an attorney, actually a CEO and a co founder to talk about outsourcing in accounting. With me, I have Rachel Phillips, who has over 10 years of experience in operations and specializing in company development, which I think led her to being partner and co founder, CEO of Fully Accountable. But also being an attorney, I think, or lawyer has helped working with businesses, working a lot with e-commerce and digital businesses through fractional CFO and accounting services. So, Rachel, welcome to Your Financial Maven.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today.
Yes. So, before I really get into talking about how you came to being part of Fully Accountable, what you guys do, I always ask my guests, what is money?
Oh gosh, what is money? Right? I think the first thing that pops to my head is such a tactical answer of currency, but um I just think of money as opportunity, right? And to
Absolutely.
me,
Yeah.
money is a way that we can create opportunity. It's a way to provide and serve. And one of the things that I'm always trying to encourage people of is money does not mean greed, but it can mean spreading wealth, right? And so, how can we use it for the better is really how I see money as just
I
opportunity.
love it. Yeah, I love it. And I think what your company provides to other business owners is that opportunity through having outsourcing, accounting services and things like that. So, how did you go from working as a lawyer, I guess, in a law firm to becoming co founder CEO of Fully Accountable? And what is Fully Accountable?
Yeah, totally. So let me start with what fully accountable is. So we are
Absolutely.
an outsourced accounting department. So think of us as your fractional bookkeeper, controller, CFO. And our job, we feel, is to take what is the old, outdated, like boring accounting department and turning it into a profit center for you, right? So
Right,
stop
right.
the old adage of billable hours, like dreading it and turning it to something
Yeah.
fun inside your business.
Yeah, and I won't take any offense to the whole boring thing because yes, I'm a CPA. I've been doing this for 30 years, but I agree with you. I think that the accounting field has come a long way, but it has definitely been slow to a degree to change. So I take no offense, and nobody else should take offense to that. I understanding kind of how things were done, and we're in such a digital world now. It's got to change as we change.
Oh, it's so true, right? The way we
Yeah.
process transactions is so different than 10, 15 years ago. We
Absolutely.
just have
Even 5 years
yeah,
ago,
completely.
right? Even before, and I would say even before COVID. I think COVID forced the accounting industry to make those changes that should have done maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago,
I could not
in my
agree more. Yeah, I totally agree.
right. Yeah.
And so a little bit about me. I graduated college with a wonderful sociology degree. Wasn't really sure
Oh,
what I wanted to do with my
wow.
life and
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna go try out law school. I know,
Good
right?
for you. I
Yeah,
I have a lot of lawyers in the family, so I'm like, wow.
yeah.
I give you guys all the credit in the world.
Go throw my hat in the ring. Um,
Yeah.
and I had a cousin that was going through it at the time or going through school, and I really appreciated the amount of doors that were opening for her that didn't just look law firm. I knew I was never going to end up in a big firm. That's not my personality. I really admire the people that can do that, but knew from my experience that I really liked the human aspect of it, and so really focused in on corporate HR and mergers and acquisitions. Ended up landing an internship in my first year with who actually was the founder of Fully Accountable. He owned a different suite of businesses at the time and built my career from helping him sell that suite of businesses. a second group of businesses. And then when Fully Accountable was founded, I'd said, "Hey, I really love the law piece that I'm doing, but I really think I could run this for you." And so I went from intern to, general business manager, whatever you call it, and have just worked my way up. We actually struck a deal earlier this year, just a few months ago, where myself and my other business partner purchased him out completely.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
yeah, now
Wow.
own a good chunk of the business and also have a great relationship with a mentor of mine who I worked with for almost 13, 14 years.
I think that is, something that is so important when you are either building your business or you're working for a business is those connections, and why they say not to burn any bridges because you just never know. You might not be happy with what you're doing or who you're dealing with, but if you have those lines of communication and you're working through whatever it is you're working through, I think that's so important, and what you're providing for in the people in the e-commerce and the design digital space is huge when it comes to, doing fractional accounting and helping people, individualize what their accounting department should look like.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I always try to encourage people, like across all sectors, is I don't think it's you need to love the end product that you do. Like, I don't
Right.
necessarily love a financial statement, right? But
Okay.
I love what we do as a company. And so it
Yeah.
makes it so fun to get behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
like the idea is you don't have to love what you sell, you have to love what you do, right? And so if you're
Yeah,
loving
I
that, yeah,
agree.
it makes
Yeah.
such a difference. And I just think
Yeah.
it here at Fully Accountable, we have an opportunity to work with a lot of people and a lot of different stages of their business and life. And I think that's a real treasure for us. And I don't take
Yeah.
that lightly.
And I think it's great because it's similar. I mean, I have worked with a lot of small business owners, gig workers, entrepreneurs. I'm not particularly, let's say, niched in certain areas, but I love the fact that there are these services out there because yes, while I am doing the work, I mean, I work for myself. I don't have any staff. I love the fact that for me, and I always say this when I have a small business owner come to me and asking questions, and I tell them what I can provide them in tax and accounting and also some education because I think financial education empowerment as part of all this is huge. Um, but I also tell them, I say, we may or may not be a good fit, and you definitely need to look around and have those questions. Talk to CFOs, talk to, you know, companies like yours, because you never know. Maybe your company can provide something that I just either can't or I'm not necessarily willing to do because of where I'm focused. So I think as we're getting into that, like, I think people need to understand, like, there are myths and realities out there about what does it mean to outsource your accounting, and I think that one of the bigger things I know I come across is security, right? We're doing things 99% to 100% online, transacting online. So what are some of the myths and realities that you've come across in the last few years that you want to share with my listeners so that they understand one why it's important to maybe hire that outsourced person and two kind of, oh, I didn't know that, because we're not pencil pushers, we're not just putting numbers into paper onto paper, like there's a real, methodology and reason behind all this.
Mhm. I would say that one of the biggest myths that we always see is this idea that there has to be somebody inside the business at all
Right.
times, right? So
Right.
we call it like the office manager, that somehow
Yeah.
she is going to is the only person that's capable of making the accounting department
Right.
run, right?
Right. Right.
For example, they'll be like, "Well, who else will deposit checks?" And it's like, "Well, we can do that for you, but it's also pretty simple. Just there's going to be somebody like you don't use those dollars to help you with a fractional CFO, right? Rather than having somebody that sits there. That's a myth. I think there is a reality when it comes to outsourcing that it is size appropriate. So for a company that's doing 100 plus $1 million a year, it's likely not appropriate. No, you could, but it's probably a better use of your dollars to have somebody in house that's working the day to day, and you could outsource the other half, which is the other myth. It either has to be completely insourced or completely outsourced, and that is not true.
Right, and I agree with you on that. I mean, there are certain things that I just like I do tell my clients, I will not cut checks for you. I will not physically deposit checks
There
for
you
you.
go. Right.
Right? and a lot of it's done electronically. A lot of people either have the scanners or take a picture and upload it. I think I see fewer people physically going to a bank to deposit checks.
I'll tell you, I have young kids that work here that have never been to a bank before. I had one be
Oh,
like, "I
no.
I don't know what to do with this." And I was like, "Bless your heart." Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, you need to do a field trip then to an actual bank because
Right.
they are still around, and I'm not saying that you can't go and make your deposits and have that connection, because you should have a connection with your bank, because they can help you with so much when it comes to your business, if you need loans or you need to get some new accounts set up, things like that, but I think a lot of things are happening online, and how do you do that? A lot of people get paid online, right? It's direct
Right.
deposit,
Mhm.
so absolutely. I
Yeah.
I agree with you that that could be a myth, that it has to be all or nothing, and it doesn't need to
It
be.
doesn't. No. When we work with a lot of companies where we're just the CFO or we're just the controller and we're working under their CFO. And honestly, it works wonderfully in those because it's a good checks and balance system you may not even have set out to have, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
yeah.
You bring up a good point. Checks and balances, right? I work for myself. I have no other employees. Yes, I know I'm a CPA, I handle my books, that kind of thing, but sometimes it's good to have somebody else reviewing your business transactions, your profit and loss, your balance sheet, to make sure you didn't miss something. I think people need to understand that analysis part is important too.
Right. And even just to go off that a little bit, there's also the aspect of sometimes I think everybody does this where you've done the same thing so many times, you have a routine. Like, I love somebody else coming in and having an opinion, or perhaps you've had an experience that I haven't had and can shed some insights on another possibility for me. Like, I'm going to A, learn from that, and B, if I can better serve the client, then what a win for both of us. Right. Like,
Right,
that,
right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Right, no ego, and also, of course, we're talking about the things that we help businesses with the advisory, the consultation is all, of course, following all of the regulations and the laws that are out there. It's not. Yes, people like to do loopholes and things like that, and that can happen, but at the end of the day, for a business, they are accountable, they are responsible for their numbers when they go to file their returns and report their numbers to get loans or other investments into the business. So, more accurate everything is, the more true to your business is, the better off you'll be in that
Oh,
regards,
completely. Yeah.
right? And I'm sure with your law background too, that brings another level of support for businesses in that
Yes.
regard.
Exactly. And it just gives us a nice little 1-2 punch, right? Like, we can look at things both from a financial, and more of a legal
Yeah.
aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we're talking about myths and reality, and you shed a little light, kind of becoming an intern, and then kind of shifting from law to being here at Fully Accountable, being the CEO, owning the company. Is there anything else that inspired you while you were starting out that really said, "Yeah, this is where I can see this is where I need to be and want to be to help businesses"? Anything during your internship or anything that shed light on that this is the company to be in.
Yeah, so there's been a couple things for me. Number one would be, we early on developed some reporting that helped businesses on a daily basis identify if they were losing money. So, very specific dashboard that we build for companies that I thought was so powerful because a company was, typically doesn't know for 15 to 30 days after the close of the month how they did. But this gives them, it's not a perfect science, it's going to be off a little bit, but a really good pulse on where they are on a day to day business, specifically in the high transaction world, just because things move so quickly. And I thought to myself, wow, if I were a business owner, there's two pieces. One, I'm getting this report, but I'm also getting somebody who's breaking it down for me that I'm not having to look at every line item, right? And as I thought to myself, wow, that is so important to be able in 10 minutes scan this, get the feedback and then go do it, not spend 4 hours trying to figure it out, right? Cuz time in these high transaction places is key. So for me, from a business standpoint, I thought to myself, wow, we can really provide companies with a lot of support because we're outsourced and we have resources and we can leverage it across to other clients, that would be really expensive for them. So we can make this affordable. And
Well,
that
and I
is a
think that's
package.
important too.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that's important too, that this isn't just you doing something for your company, you're helping with the outsourcing. Again, another reason why people might not understand the outsourcing is it can be leveraged and it
Yes.
can save you time and money, and I think you're right, time is huge. A lot of business owners, when they start their business, if they start out, entrepreneur, jump right into it, they've created a business, they don't necessarily wanna take the time with their finances because they either don't know how to deal with it, because they're not going to school for it, or it's not important to them, and I think your company, as well as myself and other people I talk with, we help to make them see that the financial side of your business is just as important as you selling that widget or that service or understanding the analytics of how you're doing, I think is very important. Because you're right. I mean, I'll be honest, I have, my monthly clients, and yeah, it takes me up to 15 days sometimes to get some of that information only because, again, I'm waiting on data from other sources too. So, and that training piece, I think it's wonderful that you guys are able to help those high transaction companies see where they're at. I don't know if you've run into this, but when I deal with my clients and I'm working with them, I'll use QuickBooks as an example because not everybody uses QuickBooks. But a lot of times they don't realize, like, when they're pulling their transactions in, they're just sitting there. They're not necessarily in the accounts where they need to be. And I think not having that data properly, put where it needs to be, we come in and help our clients go, "Hey, we need to do this." And, having outsourcing and stuff like that is huge.
Well, I think that's another myth, right? That if
Yeah,
you have QuickBooks, it does it for you. That is not.
right.
It is a great platform to manage out of, but you really do need someone to do it for you.
You're absolutely right. It is something that, yes, you can automate your accounting services within your accounting package, service, whatever software, whatever you're using, but there still needs to be somebody manually reviewing it or checking. I don't know how your company, but I am a big proponent of reconciling your books
That
to
was
make
gonna be
sure
my other, yeah.
everything, right? I was just going to say,
Yep.
so what do you come across when you come across the reconciliation of clients' books?
The biggest thing, especially when we have a new client, is, "Oh, yeah, everything's in there, it's up to date." And then it's exactly
Right.
what you just said. You've dumped a bunch of
Right.
stuff, but there's never been a bank rec. Or worse, you say, "Have you balanced and reconciled your balance sheet?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, I did that with my P&L." And L." And you're like, "Those are 2 different reports, right?"
They
And
are 2 different
yeah.
reports, absolutely.
And I think businesses, correctly so, I do believe this to be true, are so hyper focused on a profit and loss statement that a balance sheet gets pushed to the side, which is
Agree.
something that is so important to have your financial, like the yous, the us of the world. Those
Right.
balance sheets matter, and they matter the most when you need them, like getting a bank
Yes.
loan or going
Absolutely.
for some investment, and they're usually in the worst shape at that point, and it
They
can just
usually are.
be an absolute mess to try and,
Yeah.
overhaul. So,
Right.
yeah.
You're right. It is a process, and I think people need to understand that, yes, profit and loss does show you what is the money that came in, what are my expenses, where did I end up end of the month, end of the year, end of the quarter, that kind of thing. I think the thing that I come across a lot too, also, especially on the balance sheet side, is the credit cards, right? If a business uses a credit card, they're not necessarily reporting all their transactions and maximizing their expenses. So how do you, for something like that, or just getting them set up, what is kind of the process, as you explain outsource accounting more, that you kind of, when you take on someone who's new, either newly formed business or new to the idea of outsourcing, what is the advice? What are the things that you can do to get them set up? Not necessarily cleaned up, right? Because that cleaning up can take a while, but kind of getting them on board to move forward with the process.
The first thing that we always focus in on is, number 1, do we have all of your accounts? So are all of those bank accounts, credit card accounts, merchant account, is everything, are we missing something? And if so,
Right.
let's get it. That's always gonna be
Yeah.
step 1 for us. Step 2 that we've decided is we immediately go to the chart of accounts. And because of the size of the business we use, most of them aren't using GAAP and it's not applicable to them. And so, what we want to try and do is help them map a financial statement that makes sense to the way that they run their business, because that's how we find reports are most useful. So a version of a management report financial as opposed to a gap.
Right, and just so people understand, GAP stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles that businesses most not all businesses should be following. There's all kinds of rules and regulations, so, but there isn't not everybody has to follow GAP depending on their business and the size and things like that.
Yeah, and so
Go on,
we
sorry.
know, and so but that's a
Yeah,
great point, as I say, but there is a
yeah,
modified version of GAP, and there
mhm,
are principles
right.
of it that we must and need to follow, and helping
Absolutely.
mesh those 2 together because, like, our goal is to deliver you a report that you will use, not to check a
Right.
box to say you got your financial statement, right?
Right.
Like, I
Right.
want you to get that and make it useful to you, so how can we cover both of those bases? That's really where we start, and then we try and just work backwards. So, okay, let's get this useful, and then make sure everything's connected, and then let's start at the beginning and get you cleaned up. Yeah,
Right. I think that's important too. I think people don't realize the chart of accounts is kind of what are your income accounts, what are your expense accounts, what are your balance sheet accounts, because that's how you track things. I think business owners don't understand that it's double-sided accounting. There's two sides to every transaction. And I always explain that to my clients. And, and it always falls on the credit card. The reason why I bring that up is because they always say, well, I paid my credit card. You did, but that's on the balance sheet side. That's because it's a liability to your business. But everything you charged on that card, that's an expense to your business, which goes on the P&L. So I think that educational piece is important as well. And so do you find you do a lot of that financial literacy, that education for your clients, and how do they interact with that?
all the time. I think we have some clients that really lean into it and love it, and I think there's
Right.
the other category that want to know enough so that it's
Right.
effective for them. And I think
Right,
we
right.
just try to know who we're working with. I think that for people that may only that may not be ready for a CFO are going to want more literacy because they feel inclined to fill that position. And so I believe it's our job to empower them to know and help them make those decisions.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think, everybody listening out there needs to understand that it's okay to ask those questions and understand it. And like you, I've come across clients that just you deal with it. And I am a big proponent of saying, okay, but I'm still going to educate you along the way because you need to know. Because at the end of the day, and I'll reiterate this again, you as the business owner, you have ownership of your books of your business, not the CFO, the fractional CFO, not fully accountable, not myself. You are the one that owns that business and is responsible for the numbers.
I would even say the engagements where the owner is more engaged in asking good questions are
Yes.
actually more fun and better engagements, right? Like I put
Yeah.
fun first because like accountants, including myself and you, love to get on and jive about what's
Yeah.
going on. Like that's our
Yeah.
jam. So if you're like eating
Right.
it up and having good questions, like we're feeling fulfilled by helping you in your business. Like that's why we do what we do every day. There's a level of respect that you feel when somebody says, "I trust you, handle it, you don't need me." That does like, "Oh, wow, you do trust me as your advisor, as your accountant, as whatever it is." That is a good feeling, but it's equally as good to have somebody question and want to know what's going on.
And even those that say, "I respect you, you're the expert, you've gone for the training," I think you're right, that level of understanding is still just as important. So I think for those out there, you're thinking about starting a business, you're in business, you're trying to say, "Oh, maybe I should outsource my accounting." I think you need to realize, again, in level of internal control, right? It helps business owners to see things. And like we said in the beginning, the accounting world has changed, it has shifted, and trying to keep up with this, and it's not like we're just sitting in an office somewhere on our 10 key
Yes.
calculator
Yes.
calculating away. It is also about getting you to understand so that you can make the right choices for your business.
Right?
You know, do I have to stop selling this particular item because it's just not doing well? And stop leaving money on the table is what I typically
Yes.
hear and say.
Yep. I totally agree with that.
Is there anything else from an outsource accounting aspect that you think is important for people to know?
Oh, is there anything? Yes. I think that from outsourcing perspective, there tends to be this hesitancy if you could trust inherently, or you need to interview. For fully accountable in particular, we do the whole interview process. Our people are trained. For us, one of the perks of working with an outsourced company that has a entire staff of CFOs, entire staff of controllers, you have the ability that if somebody gets sick or goes on vacation, you are still having that work done. Whereas in-house, you don't. There are a lot of perks you get by working with somebody that is outsourced that you will not have with somebody who works. And one of those being that you don't have to manage them, right? You
This
and
is true.
I
Right.
manage those people. You and I
Right.
are making
Right.
sure they're getting the training and having the tools and resources to do the job. You're just putting your trust and faith into that to us to make sure that the job gets done. And so I think that there people are so used to having the employer employee relationship that this idea that maybe three people might be trained on my account is really an advantage and a benefit to you. One of our team members got quite sick about a year ago and had to go on a medical leave. And there was no blip in any of her clients' experience because we were able to say, okay, Rachel can pop in, Kendall can pop in. And because we use a lot of the same sources and processes, it's a very smooth transition. You don't feel like you're starting over each time. And so I just think that's one of the benefits of outsourcing that people stress on the other side that I didn't interview the specific person that's working on my account, where it's like, you don't have to because I've got a whole team of people that can service this for you around the clock, essentially. So that's one of the things in outsourcing I think that people are getting better about. I think that outsourcing immediately was like, we've shipped your work overseas and we have no idea who's working on it.
Right, and I think that's another myth, right?
It's
That
another
not
myth.
everything being
Yep.
outsourced is being shipped out of the United States
Right. Yeah. We
and overseas.
You're talking to a real person who works on your account every day and treats it like they work inside your business. You're just one of a few people that they work for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right, and I think that's huge for a lot of companies, a lot of small business owners, a lot of just businesses in general that wanting to know that if they do call or they do check in, that you have somebody like you said, if somebody's out sick or they took a vacation, there's still somebody doing that work. And I think outsourcing accounting, there's just so much that can be done with that. I call it accounting the transactional work, and people still, bookkeeping. It is bookkeeping per se when you're doing the transactional work, but I like to say accounting work because it's more than just doing the transactional work. And of course, I add tax stuff to it and other things for that. But do you find that some people look to your company or organization to just do the actual bookkeeping piece and then that satisfies them enough? Or do you say, you know what? We can do that, but we really want to give you all of this because that is how you can better yourself as a company.
That's a great question. I would say we're always trying to meet the potential client where they are. I think one of the best things that most people say to us is, I don't know what I don't know. And
Very true.
help. And so one of the things I always tell people is not every company actually needs a CFO. Even though it might be a benefit to me to put every person in a CFO package because it's the highest revenue generating package, it's that's not a reality. I would rather meet you where you are and serve you best there and be honest with what you need, not try to give you the lowest package because you're of a budget. And here's an example why. Somebody that needs a very low budget package or low dollar price, I shouldn't say budget, but their budget that they built is a low dollar amount. They really need those other things. And so I create a friction with them when I say, I won't do that for you. I won't do that for you. I won't do that for you. And I keep it in this closed category, which is appropriate in light of what they've signed. But I know they need more. So I need to do one of two things: make it price appropriate for them to be able to do it, or help them or encourage them to find a solution that can do it with inside their budget. Because I don't want my clients going upside down to pay for something because of what our price points are.
Right. Well, and also you don't want them to necessarily get turned away, go do
Exactly.
it themselves or go, let's say,
Mhm.
go somewhere else and then come back to you realizing, oh, this is, and I've had that, right? I've
Yes.
had people that I've worked with or I've talked to that I do like a prospective client meeting, an interview type of thing where I'll say, this is my price, this is why I do what I do, and I give, it's the value for the service that I can give you. And a lot of times they're like, "Oh, I'm just not sure, and I'll think about it," and I'm like, "That's fine," and then some of them will come back 3, 4, 5 months later, and it's like, "Oh, I tried to do it myself, and I couldn't," and I think outsourcing for accounting, I think you can do it for yourself, but I think at some point, it's really good to have the professionals come in and
Yes.
help you with that.
Well, and I think there's a unique dichotomy specifically when there's outsourcing with finance, and that you're spending money to have somebody tell you how much money you're spending. And so
It's
there's this
very true.
I
I had never thought of it really that way, but yes.
there's this idea that, do I want to spend my dollars on that? And is that
Right.
I always tell people in times of financial distress specifically, those are some of the best dollars that you can spend, right?
I agree. I agree.
And then the other piece of it is, I think especially in times where people are struggling or a little bit cash tight, they don't like to expose that. And so there's this element of like, I know I need this, but could I somehow turn this ship around a little bit because I'm either embarrassed to say it or I've perhaps painted a picture a little bit differently. I think one of the other myths I keep popping these in, but
Yeah,
um,
no, I love that. This is
we'll
great.
we'll have people be like not want to share payroll or random bank accounts because they don't want us to see things. And I'm like,
Right.
I mean this as kindly as I possible. I quite literally don't care. I know you don't. Like,
Right.
you pay yourself the salary you
Right.
feel is appropriate, and
Absolutely.
barring some situation that you are doing something illegal, I quite frankly will forget every time after I run the
Yep.
payroll.
And honestly, if you hire someone in-house, they're looking at the payroll.
Exactly.
And I think people need to realize that, and not everybody, because there are always those shady characters out there. The majority of financial professionals that you hire have ethics and they have regulations and requirements that they're required, have to do. I mean, I get 80 hours of CPA education every 2 years. And then I have on top of that my life insurance education. So, like, I'm constantly, and some of that is ethics, some of that is regulation. So, yeah, I do. I agree with you. It's a little weird, but I get it, right? Because it's not somebody in their company where they can monitor them because security is a big issue with finances,
It
I
is.
think.
And I would even go, as we've evolved, now all financial things are online. And so, like, data breaches do happen, right?
Absolutely.
With the largest of companies and the smallest of companies, neither are immune,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Nope.
and you are turning over a bit of control. There is a difference when you can walk into somebody's office and say, you know, uh,
Right.
pull all their passwords and the plug on the computer versus sending an email. It is changed, but I think the pros of it far outweigh what the cons of it can possibly be for your business. You can get it at such an affordable rate to help your business. It's just a no-brainer. It's finding the partner that works best for you based on what you need. And I loved you said earlier today, like, you're good about your non-negotiables and there are things you don't do. And so just again, I might not be the right fit for you, but I really encourage you to find somebody. Just because I'm not, don't do it. Find the person who can, right? Like, and there's so many options out there, like, that's what I love, like, we actually have a whole universe, like, 5, 6 years ago, accounting as an outsourced function wasn't nearly as popular as it is now.
Definitely wasn't.
Uh,
Definitely wasn't.
I
Yeah.
love the options out there for people. It can fit the way you look at reporting, how you wanna, digest it, like, the services that you need. There are so many options out there for you. Find the one that fits you and your business at its stage.
Yeah, and I think going into the next thing that I wanted to talk about was just this kind of transforming as we move forward, right? The innovations, yes, that now there's AI we're dealing with and the accuracy of that because it's not always right when it comes to accounting and tax, but it's still out there. But utilizing AI in other places like workflow automation and stuff. So what are the things that you at Fully Accountable, what are you seeing now that may become trends later that you're going, yeah, we can incorporate this, help our businesses see those trends? Are there things you're seeing now that maybe in the next year to 5 years, that's the direction we're heading?
Yeah. So I would definitely say the number one thing we're seeing is APIs with automations and building
Yeah,
databases in order to more
huge.
efficiently build reports. It does
Yeah,
two things. It reduces the amount of time to build your report
very true.
and
Yeah.
the number of errors, right? But
Yeah,
like with all technology, it still breaks and it still has to be
it
reviewed.
does.
And so it
Yes.
doesn't completely remove that human element. One area for us that we've highly leveraged AI as opposed to doing work for us, we've actually used it as a proofreader and a spot checker. So there's AI tools out there that you can use so you can build a report and it will match for you that if you're showing a profit that your analysis says profit, right? Like it just happens from time to time. You'll have a typo. People don't do it on purpose, but it's a way of scanning reports and analysis to make sure that they're consistent and it just reduces so many errors. Again, not that people want errors, but there is humans and I
Absolutely.
don't believe the accounting field will ever get away from humans. To me,
I don't agree either.
and I know
I mean,
people
I
are
do I
pushing
agree with you. I don't
right.
agree that it will ever not need a human, yeah.
And I know that we were just looking at something the other day that they're saying AI might be able to populate tax forms within the next few years. And I'm like, I don't know, right? Like,
Well, you kind of have that with OCR, which is the digital like, if you upload a PDF of a prior client's tax return, some software tax softwares can read it and doesn't always put it in the right spot. I can definitely tell you that because I will go through if I do it that way and go back and review it. I think you're right in that regards that yes, AI could probably just throw the numbers into a return, but it can't analyze it per se. It can't, you know, account for all the changes that we go
let's
through,
just say it
especially
doesn't know
during
if you
tax
have a
season.
baby this year, right? Or
This is true.
yeah,
Right.
just like little things
Yeah.
like that that it won't know. Maybe at some point I will come back and say I was certainly wrong. It's replaced us humans, but I at least don't see for the foreseeable future being able to remove the
Yeah.
human element out of tax and accounting.
I agree with you. I was just in the spring, I went to Pennsylvania's Future Business Leaders of America conference. They had it here. I'm in Pennsylvania. They had it in Hershey. Everyone from the state comes there for their big conference. And the Pennsylvania Institute of CPAs was asked to have some people come and speak to the high school students to talk to them about accounting and tax. And one of the questions was brought up was about AI and that idea of it taking over the accounting field. So, and as you are aware, and a lot of people are aware, there is a pipeline issue that American Institute of CPAs and the state CPA societies are all working to help get that pipeline to get more people into accounting, into becoming CPAs. And one of the areas is explaining that, yeah, there may be some AI, but a lot of that is workflow automation. A lot of that is the minutia tasks or things that we don't necessarily need to be doing that we could do other things for our clients when it comes to preparing the returns and the accounting work, the CFO work. And I think you're right. I think there will always be some kind of human element, whether it's doing more consulting or analyzing. I think utilizing that technology is huge. And I'm sure
Totally.
when you work with your clients, some may not be on board with that. How do do you highly recommend getting on board with a lot of that to help them move forward?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we try to help them with for somebody that's not on board is like look at what we can do with the powerfulness of
Yeah.
the tool versus
Yeah.
we can still do it in some regard, but you're going to lose a piece of it, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
you'll have to accept that as part of your reality. I think I like what you said earlier or just a second ago about like leveraging it for workflows. Like, and that just plays into like the idea of outsourcing because you have now these
Absolutely.
workflows that you know how to work and leverage. You can now provide reports maybe instead of the 20th on the 15th now, assuming that's
Right.
right. Like you're able to
Yeah.
do stuff more efficiently. And that will buy things back like the time and the
Absolutely.
manual nature of what was a most of the accounting field for a long time. Um,
Very long time.
yeah, and think about, like, now you have a professional that's gaining days back of their month to give you more analysis guidance, strategic thinking, those I think we're
Absolutely.
just placing our time in different areas. That's one way we can get them. We can do this manually for you, but you're going to lose some time
Certainly.
on the
Oh, yeah.
phone or strategy because we're manually doing this. And
Right.
most of the time, that's what gets them on board when they're like, oh, I won't be able, like, no, if
Yeah.
you want that report the 10th, you've got to be on board with this because this is
Right.
how you get the report on the 10th.
Yeah. I mean, I have, and I started, like I said, before COVID, but 99% of my clients, well, all my clients, I have a, secure client portal. I do most of my communication through that portal. And it's not to say that I don't have virtual meetings with them or if I have to meet them in person, but a lot of it is in that portal. One, yeah, you could say for CYA covering yourself with what you've talked about, but also to be able to share the data more instantaneously with that client, whether they look at it right away or not, but you're able to provide that. And I think the majority of my clients, they're on board with that. I still have some that come to the office to drop off their documents. So yes, I'm scanning it in, I'm putting it in there, but they then realize the time and the efficiency of the stuff when I do it electronically. And yes, you're still going to have people that, no way, I'm not doing that, and unfortunately, I think the way that the accounting field is heading, a lot of that manual process in that regards might not be, there, because tax returns can all be filed electronically. You can email financials to a bank, it's email it to your board of directors if you have to. Like, there's a lot to that. This has been fabulous, like understanding about outsourcing. I love that you threw in different myths and realities throughout because I think it is definitely important. Is there anything else you want to share? And also, where can we find you or where can we find Fully Accountable if anybody would love to reach out?
Yeah, I think the last myth that I'll just throw in here for you,
Yeah,
and close it out is, uh, the accountant doesn't have to work banking hours anymore, right? Like, you don't have
very
to work
true.
the 8 to 5.
Right.
I think the online nature of it has shown it doesn't really, matter other than wires going out when the wire clearinghouse
Right.
is open. The rest of it can be
Right.
done when it needs to be done. One of the things that I just encourage people is don't feel like the person has to be sitting there 8 to 5. We have an entire category. Most of our team are work from home moms that get to be both mom and a professional. And so I think one of the myths is, accounting is a banking hour job, but it's not a banking hour job. We can do it around the clock for you.
No, I love it because I've been doing this for 30 years, and I would definitely agree with my when my kids were younger, it was a little harder to do this kind of work. But I think now, yeah, I love that yes, it can be done now, granted, and I'm sure your staff as well, having that work-life balance, but the fact that you could get on a call or do something for a client, let's say at 7 in the morning just because you have that time and then come back to them later in the day. It's not that, accounting can be done 24/7 if you want it, but,
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
gotta be some limit.
Well, I always like to say,
Banks
like,
aren't always open, so there's that.
yes. Like, I love that mom can get up, do a little bit of work because she's up before the kids, make them breakfast, put them on the bus, go grab a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and then get back to work. Like, there
Yeah,
is
I think it's great.
no shame in that, and there is
Mm-mm,
no
none.
reason why that should be looked at as not getting the job done when she's
Right.
doing it just at different times of the day. So,
Oh, I love it, I love it. So where can we find
yes.
you and or Fully Accountable?
Yep, you can find Fully Accountable, at fullyaccountable.com. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And then if you need me, you can always find me at Rachel at fullyaccountable.com.
I love it, and I will get those links into the podcast bio, so if anybody wants to reach out for some CFO services
Great.
or, have any other questions, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining me.
you. Yeah, have a great day.
Follow, like, and subscribe to Your Financial Maven wherever you listen to your podcasts. And make sure that you leave your money stories or questions for me at www.yourfinancialmavenpodcast.com. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about money. The purpose of this podcast is to provide general information on the subjects discussed. It is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to resolve your specific financial needs or situations. Please consult with your CPA, tax, or financial professionals. Your Financial Maven is hosted and produced by Samantha M. Besnoff, CPA, and Your Financial Maven, LLC. Editing is done by Chris Zarnock of KM Zen Creative. Music is written, composed, and performed by Daniel Shore.